That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is UFC 310 fight week. It is tomorrow night in Las Vegas in the T-Mobile Arena. We have the UFC Flyweight Championship up for grabs on the line. First, Oscar, how are you?
I'm very good, man. We did not have a show last week. I had a nose surgery I had to get taken care of, but now we're back, and we only have 2 cards to end this year, and I think we're really going to end very strong. The UFC made sure to give us some quality, and when it comes to quality, a lot of people don't know how high quality Kai Asakura is because this is his UFC debut, and rarely do you see a UFC debutant get that title shot right away, and that's the case here this Saturday for the Flyweight Championship. Defending champion Alexandre Pantoja is going to attempt to defend against Kai Asakura. I think this is a high-quality fight that is getting overlooked a little bit here because Pantoja is not exactly the most charismatic and popular champion, but I believe we're going to see a lot of action in this fight. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I completely agree. You talked about Kai Asakura, huge star, stepping inside the UFC. They don't have to try and build this guy because he's already been built himself. If you look at his YouTube channel, I mean, I think there's like millions, billions of views on there. He's got a really big fan base already. And I talked about before we went on there. If Kai Asakura can win the UFC, they've got themselves a money man in that Asian market straight away. I know we have Wei Li, etc., but that's that sort of China's huge in its own market. So I think if they can get Kai Asakura, the Japanese market for the UFC would be absolutely phenomenal. They would love that. And Ryzen, his former promotion, would probably hate that because they take all the money over there. But he's a huge star heading inside the UFC. But you have to look at who he's up against. Alexandre Pantoja, his striking's getting better, but his grappling is fantastic. We know he could probably submit anyone in the division. Top 10, top 15 in the world. He's slick. And that's where I see Kai Asakura kind of struggling. He's a big frame, and that also worries me as well. The last time he made 125 pounds was God knows when. He's been fighting in Japan for 135 pounds, since I don't know, but it has been a long time since he made 125 pounds. And I don't know whether you saw him on that scale earlier. He looked a bit rough. I think Pantoja wins, and I think he looks good, and I think he wins pretty easily. I think Pantoja is, I think he can hold himself on the feet. I think we might see a knockdown 1 or 2 from Kai Asakura, but we're going to see Kai Asakura fall into the guard of Pantoja, and that's where we're going to see the unraveling, the end. Pantoja submits him, armbar or triangle off the back.
Yeah, Alexandre Pantoja has shown that he's a very capable grappler, one of the best in the division, was able to effectively outgrapple Brandon Moreno multiple times. What he did to Brandon Royval in their first fight was outstanding. And a lot of people don't know this, but he's beaten 8 out of the top 10 contenders of this weight class. So that's why they're giving the title shot to Kai Asakura. And I feel like Pantoja is not too far from being in the Mighty Mouse spot where a lot of people are not interested in seeing him fight because if he was going to win every time out there. And Kai Asakura being this new blood, that presents a real opportunity because he's a really good counter striker. If you see his last fight when he fought Juan Archuleta, who's a great wrestler from California, he goes for a takedown and he gets clipped with a knee right to the body and he crumples. And I feel like Pantoja will present a lot of opportunities for Kai to hit him because he's a guy that compares himself to Rocky Balboa from the films because he takes one to give one all the time. And that presents a lot of risk. Kai Asakura, I believe, has a little bit of a striking advantage, but I think it's Pantoja that might have more of a power and durability advantage. So it could still be treacherous for Kai on the feet. Now on the ground, I don't think it's close, honestly. Pantoja, obviously, as a black belt, can outgrapple basically everybody. Kai Asakura has been taken down many times, and he's been held down before. So this is not a great matchup for Kai Asakura, if I'm being truthful here, but I will still take Pantoja winning this fight by decision. I think he goes the distance here. Kai Asakura, I think, will realize if he tries to get up, he's going to get his back taken. So it's going to be like Pantoja versus Roybal last year, where we had Pantoja just being on top, uh, using more of his stamina effectively. Asakura, who I don't think is built for a 5-round fight. He's not really experienced in that range while Pantoja is. There's just a lot of advantages that makes me go with Pantoja. But just because Kai is not a UFC guy doesn't mean you should count him out.
Absolutely agree. Kai Asakura, last time he made flyweight was in 2017 when he hit the 126 pound mark. In a fight against when he was fighting a guy that was 9-9, he lost that fight in the third round where he got knocked out. Interesting. I feel like he's evolved. He's huge. He's absolutely huge for 125 pounds, and I also think that plays a factor. I think if Pantoja can hold him down, wear down the muscles, the big frame of Asakura, round 3, round 4, round 5. Who knows? You spoke about earlier. Maybe the power of Alexandre Pantoja comes out to play and finishes Asakura. I think it's very highly possible. Manel Cap finished Asakura. Manel Cap hits hard as well. So, but yeah, I think Pantoja for me, this one is quite an easy pick. I feel like if Asakura wins this weekend, I'd be shocked. I think I would really be shocked.
Yeah, and I believe it would be for the best of the division to have a new champion because Pantoja has already fought basically everybody. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Pantoja getting his hand raised by decision, in my opinion. We'll move on now to the co-main event, which kind of feels like the people's main event, if we're being completely honest, because Shavkat Rakhmonov was supposed to headline the card against the current champion, Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad gets a life-threatening toe infection, has to pull out, and in steps Ian Machado Garry, who was supposed to fight Colby Covington the week after. And now we have 2 undefeated welterweights in there vying for that number 1 contendership. I really think that this will kind of determine the future of the welterweight division. Whoever wins this is probably going to be a champion and have the title for a significant amount of time. And I believe, if we're being completely unbiased here, there have been a little bit of things that have affected the bias where it feels a little difficult, because if you've heard the rumors, Shavkat Rakhmonov was able to easily submit Ian Machado Garry in the gym. I can't take that out of my head. And we've also heard reports that Ian Machado Garry has been knocked out in that same gym before. So, in my eyes, there's many reasons why you should pick Shavkat Rakhmonov. He can knock out Ian Machado Garry, and I feel he can submit him as well. But I'm actually going to go with a bit of a combination here. I think he drops Ian Machado Garry and takes his back immediately and gets that rear naked choke for round 2 and just continues that winning streak. And I believe he's really going to do the same to Belal Muhammad next year when he takes him on. I'm 100% on the Shavkat bandwagon right now. There's no reason to go against it. There's very few weaknesses in this game. If we're talking weaknesses, I would have to say his defense on the feet is not the greatest, but against Ian Machado Garry is more of a precision guy. He doesn't have that crazy power, and especially in this fight, he's going to be sticking and moving in this fight. He's going to stay on the outside. If he goes in the pocket, that's dangerous for him. He's not going to do it. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think, gets enough pressure going, lands that big shot, and finds a finish one way or another. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely. And it's tough for me to say that I like Ian Garry. He's Irish. Quite close to home. If we didn't see the fight last time out between him and Michael Venom Page, I think I'd have more confidence in him. I felt like heading into that fight, I felt like he would have the striking advantage against Michael Venom Page because, Ian Machado Garry was looking fantastic before that. But I think there was some doubts that kind of creeped in my head a little bit about him. He was getting clipped at will by Michael Venom Page. The speed was, a problem. Is Shavkat Rakhmonov going to have Michael Venom Page speed? Absolutely not. But I feel like he's liable to getting clipped. Shavkat Rakhmonov, one of the best, well-rounded it, working it all together. We know how good his striking is. We know how good his grappling is. I think it's going to be a showcase for himself this weekend. 18-0 18 finishes. This man is scary. I think he and Machado Garry is either in for a quick night or for a long night. But at the end of the day, Shavkat Rakhmonov gets a finish, whether it's in the third round or the third round. I've also feel like with Garry, not that we've seen him slow down a little bit, but I feel like if there is a guy though for the bright lights, the pressure, it's got to be an Irishman. I think Ian Garry fits that a lot. But you got to look at who's coming up against. A guy who's 18-0, 18 finishes, has looked impeccable. If he's going to have to do it, he's got to be this weekend. He's got to forget everything that's happened in that training room. Doesn't matter how many times Shavkat Rakhmonov has submitted him or potentially even clipped him. He's got to go in there fresh-minded. And I do feel like that, it's going to help because if you look at his corner team as well, obviously he's moved away from that. He's a Brazil trainer in Brazil with Charles Oliveira. I feel like they're going to be, they're going to know how to help Ian Garry win this fight. I think it's a fantastic team for him to kind of help and guide him to the top. Charles Oliveira, great mentality. His team around him, great mentality. Brothers in arms, family, all of them. But it's not going to help him. Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think he not dog walks him. But I think we're going to be shocked about how good this man is once again. I feel like we've got whoever wins this fight is the future champion of the division.
I place a lot of emphasis on what happened in the gym, but they're talking about what happened in the octagon as well. We see serious holes in Ian's game. He fights Kenan Song 2 years ago. He gets dropped in round 1. Sure, he made a mistake, but the fact that he was dropped says a lot. And if you look at that clip of him getting dropped, immediately he gives his back. You cannot do that when you fight Shavkat. Also, his last fight against Michael Venom Page, he's this significant favorite. And he's supposed to be miles ahead in the grappling. And in round 3, we see MVP get a lot of control time. He actually does quite well for himself on the ground. So that, for me, showed a lot of concern if you're an Ian Machado Garry fan. I know he works with Charles Oliveira. I know he works with Damien, but he still has to develop those skills. And everything we've seen from Shavkat, he's just overwhelming on the ground. There's not been a guy that when he gets his hands on him that he cannot submit so far. That's just not been a thing. He finishes guys. That's what separates him from having this undefeated record versus other guys who have a similar record, is he finishes guys. He's an opportunist, and he's going to find that opportunity. And also, he has the advantage of it being 5 rounds, so he has more time to find a finish if it were to go longer with Machado Garry ahead on the scorecards.
Absolutely agree. Look forward to that one. That one for me is my main event. I think the main event of Asakura versus Pantoja is great, but this one, 2 undefeated guys, 18-0, 15-0. How could you not like it? Next one on the main card, we've got Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. A rematch, potential title implications in this one. Ciryl Gane returning off the back of a victory against Sergey Spivak. He looks to defeat Alexander Volkov again. They fought obviously once in 2021, which I say was quite a decisive decision for Ciryl Gane. How do you see the rematch playing out?
I don't see the rematch playing out too differently whatsoever. We've seen Volkov use a little bit of grappling in the past. He was able to submit Taito Uvasa, but ultimately he prefers to strike, and Ciryl Gane also prefers to strike. So we're going to have these guys basically kickboxing out there, and Ciryl Gane showed why he's the better fighter in the first fight. Not only is he a little bit younger, he's also quicker, and I feel like he's more of a natural athlete out there, and that just goes quite far in this heavyweight division. Ciryl Gane has many limitations, but Volkov does not have the skills to make them exposed here. He does have a little bit of power. He is coming on a really good win streak here. He just beat Pavlovich, who many people thought was the boogeyman of the division about a year ago. But I just don't see him having the grappling that you need to beat Ciryl Gane, or maybe the one-punch knockout power that you need to beat Ciryl Gane.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this goes quite similar to the first fight. Complete domination on the feet with Ciryl Gane. If it's a favourable matchup, as you've been speaking for Ciryl Gane, he's going to have his way. He's going to be confident. He's going to be bouncing on his feet, letting his kicks go. and he's going to cruise to victory. He's a minus 260 favorite according to Tapology, and I think that's justified. I think he's going to win this weekend against Volkov, who, as of late has a sort of realized a character, a personality. He's playing up to the fans. Everyone's liking it. He's getting his comb out mid-fight, brushing his hair in front, and when he's on the stool in the rounds. Yeah, if he wins this fight, we got a real, mix up. And he's had a lot of fights. He's 38-10. He's experienced, but it's got to be now. No, it's got to be now. If he beats Cyril Gane in a rematch, if he goes 2-0 against, 2 losses against Cyril Gane, it's pretty much unlikely that he's going to, reach the top of the division again. This fight, big implications. Whoever wins this fight most likely will fight Tom Aspinall for the interim championship, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There's not a lot of guys that the UFC has gotten behind like Cyril Gane in this division. So 2 wins will be enough for him to get a title shot, especially with the fact that he was the former interim champion with that TKO win over Derek Lewis back in the day. He wanted to fight Tom Aspinall, but only after Tom Aspinall got his hands on the title. Before that, he did not want it. So that kind of says a lot to me. And we'll move on to the next fight. Very controversial fight in terms of the card placement here. Why don't you get into this featherweight fight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this one's quite easy for me to pick. Kron Gracie returning back to the ring after a terrible fight against Charles Jourdain, where he got dominated, pieced up. He was butt scooting probably the whole fight. He was on his butt and he was scooting around the octagon. It wasn't a great look. And he said this week that he's not going to bring that mentality. But I don't know. I think this guy, I really can't trust him. I think my pick is just Bryce Mitchell, and he's a huge favorite according to Tapology. And this fight for me is a Steph Curry getting a free throw in a match. I think it's a must. It's a given. I think Bryce Mitchell is gonna win this fight pretty easily. I think if you send Steph Curry to the free throw line, he's gonna get 2 points. You send Bryce Mitchell in against Kron Gracie, he's gonna get a victory.
Yeah, I just believe that Kron Gracie's greatest skill will be negated in this fight by Bryce Mitchell because Gracie's skill set is based off of being on his back, not so much getting the takedowns himself, because he will not be able to do that against Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell is very strong. He's shown it many times. He threw around Edson Barbosa like it was nothing. Same thing when he fought Dan Ige. So Bryce Mitchell will get takedowns if he wants them. And when he gets on top, Kron Gracie will attempt to throw up submissions, but he'll have no success. Charles Jourdain is not the same level of grappler as Bryce Mitchell. So if Jourdain can defend those submissions, you bet Bryce Mitchell can defend those submissions. And on the feet, Kron Gracie actually was a big competitive when he fought Cub Swanson, and it was basically all striking. But Bryce Mitchell, the fact that he did get knocked out really bad last year against Josh Emmett, that was significant brain damage he suffered. That is a little concerning, but it's not like Kron Gracie has shown this crazy power. So Bryce Mitchell, I think on the feet can actually do pretty well if he wants to. Kron Gracie has, outside of the Cub Swanson fight, has shown none of his striking. So Bryce Mitchell is for sure a lock in this fight.
Yeah, that was one of the worst knockouts I've ever seen in my life in terms of how scary it was in the moment. A big right hand from Josh Emmett would stop a Ford Escort. If you know, you know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, Bryce Mitchell wins this one, I think, pretty handily. I think he gets the job done. This one, for me, I feel like the UFC know Bryce Mitchell's a star. Everyone likes Bryce Mitchell. Everyone wants to see him winning. So they threw him a favourable matchup, in my opinion. I think they threw him Kron Gracie. A guy who, Kron Gracie, we're not going to see drastic improvements in his striking. We're not going to go out there and we're going to see a guy who's going to start striking like Rafael Fiziev or Dustin Poirier. He's going to get clipped by Bryce Mitchell and then grappling as well. I know Kron Gracie can grapple, you can submit him, but I think Bryce Mitchell will be able to hold his own in that scene. Don't get me wrong, you probably don't want to stay down there for too long because he's got that Gracie second name. You never know what's going to happen, but I think Bryce Mitchell was smart enough. I think he's going to clip him on the feet, and I think we're going to see another scenario where Kron Gracie's butt scooting around the octagon again, and he's losing a 3-round decision.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me, but he did say he's going to change his weight. Let's hope he does. And we're moving to a completely opposite fight, a fight that we're looking forward to, a fight that will deliver all of the action. Another fight at featherweight that I feel will deliver. What do you make of Nate the Train Landwehr versus the Korean Superboy, Doo-Hoo Choi?
Yeah, Nate the Train Landwehr. Ever since he got inside the UFC, he's made his voice known. He's great on the mic. He's a fantastic personality, and we've really seen that in his last few fights as well. He got that win against Jamal Emmers straight on the mic. I feel like everyone loves this guy. He's got a fantastic personality. He speaks well. He's fighting Doo-Hoo Choi, who back in the day was a fantastic prospect, but coming off the back of a fantastic win against Bill Algeo, knocking him out via left hook. This one for me is a great, fantastic fight. Nate Landwehr. I don't know which way to call this, but it's a great fight. I'm looking forward to it. I feel like we've got two fan, not fan favorites, but everyone likes a bit of a Korean Superboy and Nate Landwehr. For me, tough one to pick. I think Nate Landwehr gets the job done. I feel like we've just seen a little bit more of him the last few years.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. Doo-Hoo Choi has not been very active even after his mandatory military service was done. He's gotten knocked out so many times since that Cub Swanson fight because of the damage he suffered. That fight was so insane that it got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. So, sure, he gave us that one legendary fight, but since then, it's been a very rocky road. He got knocked out by Charles Jourdain, knocked out by Jeremy Stevens. His durability is just not what it used to be. And Nate Landwehr, he's also a guy that doesn't have the best durability. He's been knocked out many times himself, even by Herbert Burns, Julian Erosa. So these are two guys that are vulnerable, but they also do hit hard. Both guys have a lot of knockouts on their record. Nate Landwehr, I think, is the more reckless of the two. Doo-Hoo Choi has cleaner technique, so I expect Nate Landwehr to just go in there, make it dirty. And he said he shared a very personal detail. He said that his wife suffered a miscarriage, so he's going to be carrying those emotions in there. He's going to go out there, swing it. And I expect this to be the fight of the night. Both guys will be hurt multiple times, but at the end of the day, it's going to be Nate Landwehr knocking out Doo-Hoo Choi around midway through round 2. And it's going to be epic. I believe this is a fight you do not want to miss.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. I also like to see Nate Landwehr get the job done. The Korean Superboy did look good in his last outing, but I think Nate Landwehr gets the job done. He's fantastic on the mic. I'm looking forward to that already. Next one, we got Anthony Smith versus Dominic Reyes. I love Anthony Smith. Watching his fight, a few years ago when he submitted Alexandre Gustafsson, getting a shot at the belt. He had he had an infamous run back then. But since then it's been a little bit rocky. It's not been too great. He had a bit of a resurgence, beating Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute, Ryan Spann, but the last few fights, he beat Vitor Petrino, a guy that he's meant to beat, Roman Dolidze in his last fight where he lost a unanimous decision. Now he takes on Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes only gets beat, or I feel like if you get in trouble with Dominic Reyes, you have to have some sort of power in your hands. And if you look across, and Anthony Smith, I don't believe Anthony Smith does hold that power. In the first 3 minutes, Anthony Smith will be dangerous. He will be sharp. He will use his jab. He will do his right hand. But I think Reyes can just about hold on. The boxing, of Dominic Reyes back in the day, sharp. John Jones arguably won that fight. If we can see that Dominic Reyes, I think he wins this fight pretty handily. I think he wins this fight pretty easily, and I think he does. I think he wins this fight. Dominic Reyes' return, I think he's from what I've seen on the embedded, he looks like a different guy. The mentality switch is there. He's coming back off a well needed win against Dustin Jacoby, where he knocked out Dustin Jacoby. Dustin Jacoby, before that fight, everyone was talking about it, ranting about him. Dustin Jacoby's this, Dustin Jacoby's that. He hits hard, he knocks people out. He was on a fantastic run. Dominic Reyes stopped that, beat him up, punched him, knocked him out. Now he takes on Anthony Smith, who, if you look at his track record, notoriously, gets stopped quite a lot. So I think Dominic Reyes gets a stoppage this weekend.
This fight, you can attack from so many angles. I'm going to have to start with Anthony Smith here. He just lost his kickboxing coach, I believe. So he's coming into
Oh,
this fight with a very heavy heart. He admitted during the media day that he does not care if he wins. This is merely to exercise those demons. So this is very concerning when you hear a fighter is not going out there to win. And on the other hand, you have Dominic Reyes. All he wants is to win. This guy is sick of losing. Also with Anthony Smith, this guy has been on the verge of retirement for what feels like a year. He's had some really tough losses. Many times when he looks in the mirror, he thinks about if he wants to do this still. And he has admitted on the podcast with Michael Bisping that he is not motivated like he used to be. He hates doing the physical preparation. And his physical preparation failed them last time out against Roman Dolidze. Sure, it was short notice, but in round 2, he looked very tired. Roman Dolidze was able to outpace him, do basically whatever he wanted. He looked so sloppy out there. There were so many openings for him to get hit. I think Dominic Reyes not only hits harder than Dolidze, I believe he's a little sharper out there. So in round 3, when Anthony Smith has taken a lot of punishment, he's going to be tired, similar to the Khalil Roundtree fight. I think he gets hit with a big shot, goes down. Dominic Reyes gets another knockout. Reyes, I believe, has his confidence back, and that's huge in this game. Anthony Smith, on the other hand, does not have that confidence, and he doesn't care to win. So I believe Reyes is very trustworthy here.
yeah, and obviously, if you look at Anthony Smith, today at the weigh-ins, missed weight by half a pound, and came back and made weight. So he's on weight. The fight will happen. You won't get fined or anything like that. But maybe struggling with the weight as well. Maybe struggling with motivation. Losing his coach, as you mentioned. Not really getting too excited about fighting anymore. So maybe that's a big factor. You talked about that as well. So yeah, that one, Dominic Reyes, I feel like we're going to see win the fight. I think he's going to get the job done, and unfortunately, knock out or maybe stop one of my favorite fighters. I enjoyed watching. I feel like his run back in the day when he fought Glover, when he fought submitted Alexander Gustafsson. He was on it, he was sick, he was entertaining, he was finishing everyone. It was great to watch. That was when he first moved up to 205 pounds. He was a great watch then. Next one, Vicente Luque versus Temba Garimbo. This one for me is obviously this was meant to be bittersweet. It's bittersweet for me, this one. It was meant to be Nick Diaz, so I'm happy to not see Nick Diaz in there. And Nick Diaz, who we've seen concerning videos of him online on the street, and a lot of his ex-girlfriend. Well, I say his ex-girlfriend, talking about drugs and addiction and like that, and obviously pointing it towards Nick Diaz. So I'm happy we're not seeing Nick Diaz in there, but I'm not happy because I'd love to see Nick Diaz in there because he's a living legend. So bittersweet. He takes on Temba Garimba, who we know he has a fantastic story. He faces Vicente Luque, who, you look at Vicente Luque and you feel like he's been inside the UFC for a long time. He's surely got to be older than Garimbo. He's not. He's actually they're the same age. Vicente Luque has just been in these sort of wild scraps, wild fights, inside his UFC career. So he's got a lot of miles on his clock. And I feel like that does make him vulnerable against Garimbo, who, has that sort of power. I think Vicente Luque for Grimbo is just a big, massive step up. I feel like he won't be able to handle that. I think Vicente Luque on his day is still really good. He's still really young. There's a slight underdog according to Tapology, and I'm betting on that dog. I think Vicente Luque, grinds out a great fight. I think this is going to be a 29-28. I think it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic fight for the fans. I still believe in Vicente Luque. I think he can still make somewhat not a run at the title, but I feel like he still can be competitive.
Yeah, for Vicente Luque, I hate to say, but he's a diminished version of himself. Ever since he fought Jeff Neal, he got knocked out so bad he had a brain hemorrhage. So he's a little more cautious out there. You see the fight with Rafael dos Anjos, he uses only wrestling to win that fight. And then he fights Joaquin Buckley. Buckley was able to take him down and got a ground and pound stoppage from the top. It basically looked like Luque gave up on himself there. So it's very disheartening to see that. But on the Temba Garimbo side, it's not exactly all sunshine and rainbows. He fights Ramiz Brahimaj. And that fight was even he admitted was boring. He just held him up against the cage, wasn't really able to get those takedowns. So I don't really think he's this outstanding offensive wrestler. So I believe Luque can out-grapple Temba Garimbo here, and he's known for that dart stroke. So if Temba Garimbo gets a little reckless with a takedown attempt, he can get his neck taken by Luque here. But that would be the Luque of old that would do that, I think. So this version of Luque, I think, a little more cautious. I think he wins the decision still by out-grappling Temba Garimbo. He does have better striking technique than Garimbo. Garimbo's all about that raw power. So he could catch Luque, sure, but I think Luque will, as I said, play safe and win the decision here. I just believe his skills are a lot better than Temba's.
Yeah, I'm rooting for my man Vicente Luque. I think I'm hoping to see. I don't think we're going to see Vicente Luque as as he was back in the day, but just a little bit, maybe a little glimpse, and I think he wins this fight against Temba Glimbo. If you look at Vicente Luque run back in the day when he was he's knocking a few people out, finishing them. Randy Brown knockout springs to mind. This guy was a savage. He was a killer. He was it was always good fights. And that's come back to haunt him, as we've seen as of late. Getting knocked out against Hakim Buckley, who maybe potentially wouldn't have knocked him out a few years ago. But here we are. Next fight, 145 pounds, Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. And this one, top five, fighters at featherweight. Aljamain Sterling, former bantamweight champion before losing to Sean O'Malley. Movsar Evloev, undefeated, 18-0. Can Aljamain Sterling be the one to firstly beat the Russian Evloev, or does Movsar Evloev keep continuing on his rise to quest the gold and fighting maybe potentially the explorer down the line?
I really like Movsar Evloev in this fight. I actually had the opportunity to meet him at the PFL event. A lot shorter than you would imagine, but he's just very powerful. Aljamain Sterling was the bantamweight champion, one of the best champions we've seen in that weight class. But at this featherweight weight class, he can dominate guys like Calvin Kattar, but I'm not too sure about the stronger guys like Movsar Evloev. So when it comes down to it, I believe Aljamain Sterling will fail on most of his takedown attempts, causing him to have to strike with Movsar. Movsar is a very capable striker. When he fought Arnold Allen, who's one of the better strikers in the division, he was able to beat him using his striking for the most part. And also the Dan Ige fight, he mainly used his striking. So he can win this fight if they're just striking. But knowing Movsar, this guy always loves to mix in takedowns. So he's going to get those takedowns when he wants them. Aljamain Sterling, off of his back, is not super capable. If you've seen most of his fights, like a Petr Yan fight, whenever he's on bottom, he's not doing a ton. He's kind of just they were survival tactics, if we're being honest. He was taking advantage of the fact that you can't need a grounded opponent in that rematch. So I believe Aljamain Sterling gets stuck on bottom multiple times, and on the feet, he's gonna lose every time out. Like on the feet, he's just not a good boxer whatsoever. He's a good kickboxer. He can stay on the outside, mix in the kicks, but Movsar has his number, I believe. This is just not a good matchup for Sterling.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think this is a great fight for Aljamain Sterling as well. I feel like he's going to thrive in this moment. If he wins this fight, I feel like he could get himself inside inside a title shot. And there's always like something that springs to mind with Aljamain Sterling. His fight against Corey Sanhagen, when he needed a statement victory to get himself up there in the rankings, a title shot. He went in there, he took him down and submitted him in 30 seconds. But that was Corey Sandhagen who pretty much had no takedown defense. Movsar Evloev is going to be more, defendant. He's going to be able to, stop that for a while. Aljamain Sterling, if he can get on your back, he's an absolute backpack. He can hold you in that position for as long as he wants. He's a specialist there. But Movsar Evloev is, a true 145 pounder. I know Aljamain Sterling. I remember watching him on the UFC weigh-in show just then. He said that he struggled to make this weight. Actually, he said he had to cut weight again this morning, which he hadn't done in his last fight against Calvin Kattar. He said he woke up on rate. He was ready. But this one, instead, he woke up and he had to cut a few more pounds. And he said that annoyed him. So maybe that could be, two different things. He struggled to make weight and, he had a lot more to cut, or he's filling out the division a little bit more, putting a lot more beef on, starting to get his frame there. And I think it's more of that. I think he's starting to get his frame a lot more, adjusted to 145 pounds. At 135 pounds, he was still huge, but, it's a different kind of frame. I feel like every 10 pounds you add on, you've got to kind of build a different frame. I think we're going to see. I think this is a good fight, and I'm rooting for the underdog. I think Aljamain Sterling is going to take the O of Movsar Evloev.
Yeah, that would be a massive statement. We've seen Movsar get put in these submissions before. When he fought Diego Lopez, there was a lot of close calls. Even when he fought was it Nick Lentz back in the day, he got caught in a couple of guillotines there that he was in real danger of. But the fact that he can get out of those submissions, I believe it instills a lot of confidence in my pick
I
here.
feel like
We'll move on to the next fight.
in these high pressure moments, we're needing a statement. I think he's going to pull it off. Quite similar to Corey Sandhagen.
The next fight here is at welterweight. Randy Brown versus Bryan Battle. This is a very interesting fight because Bryan Battle just missed weight, obviously, by, 5 pounds, I believe? And that's a major concern because he used to fight at middleweight, so maybe he's one of these guys that just got a little over ambitious by going to welterweight, and it could cost him here because I believe this is going to be a close fight. Randy Brown, say what you want about his losses, but in many of these fights, he's always in control whenever he's on the outside, using his boxing, using that jab. That reach is always going to be a problem for guys, but the thing is, Bryan Battle only is at a 1-inch reach disadvantage here, and he also has a power advantage here. When it comes to the grappling, I believe he's more capable than Randy Brown at getting a submission here, but the fact that he missed weight, I feel like we could see him slow down in round 3. So he has to win rounds 1 and 2 because round 3 he's probably going to slow down. Randy Brown outpoints him there, but I still think he wins this fight on the strength of his punching power. What he did to Kevin Jousset in Paris was a huge statement. You didn't think the Butcher was going to lose to a French dude. Has become such a moment for this year on the mic. And Randy Brown is going to try to shut down that hype. I don't think he can. I just see the power being a bit of an issue for Randy Brown.
Yeah, I like this fight between Bryan Battle and Randy Brown, two lanky welterweights. Bryan Battle, unfortunately missing weight, but Randy Rude Boy Brown, he's the gamer. He loves streaming on Twitch. He's good to watch. Been in some exciting fights. Obviously presenting Luke back down as we talked about, earlier on in the podcast. 13-5 inside his UFC career on a 3-fight winning streak right now. His last loss come to Jack Delaman Arena. I think he wins this one. I think Bryan Battle was good. I feel like I think Randy Brown's just better. That's pretty much it, really. I feel like he's better striking, the grappling as well. I feel like Randy Brown can obviously have his way. As I mentioned, Bryan Battle, we saw it in his last fight when he won in enemy territory. He's got a bit of a personality. He could get on the mic and start calling out the fans. I don't mind it. But I think Rude Boy beats him this weekend. I think Rude Boy is kind of, quite slick. I like him.
Yeah, I believe Bryan Battle has massive star potential. I just hope he finds his correct weight class and he's not another Kelvin Gastelum that can't really figure it out. So for Bryan Battle, I believe he's going to still win in fashion this fight. He's going to look sharp out there. Randy Brown, on the other hand, I believe he's kind of hit his ceiling of being a guy just right outside the top 15, unfortunately. We'll move on to the next fight at a catch weight of 195 pounds. This was supposed to be at Madison Square Garden, Chris Weidman's hometown. It didn't work out because Eric Anders got sick and had to pull out the day of. That had to be soul crushing for Chris Weidman because he's never gotten a win in Madison Square Garden. He's always had real bad luck there. So I feel like he wanted to get that monkey off of his back. He can't do that. And if I'm being frank, this might be the last time we see Chris Weidman fight. If you listen to any of these interviews, it seems like he's obviously near the end, and any fight could be the last one. But one major confidence booster for me is his leg has gotten better recently. He told John Anik in the fighter meeting that his leg is significantly better than it was heading into his last two fights. What it means is he can now push off that leg more, generate more power, have better footwork. So Eric Anders, on the other hand, this is a guy that he beat Jamie Pickett by decision in his last fight. He couldn't finish Jamie Pickett. He also got dropped by Jamie Pickett in that fight. That is a huge concern because anybody that has seen Jamie Pickett fight knows that Jamie Pickett is a bottom of the food chain kind of guy. That's just how it is at middleweight. And the takedown defense from Eric Anders has never been incredible. Chris Weidman will go out there and get these takedowns whenever he wants them, and whenever they're on the feet, he will be outstriking Eric Anders. I just believe Eric Anders himself is also at the tail end of his career. Sure, he's taking it more seriously now. This is a guy that admitted to doing party drugs heading into his last couple of fights. So not the most disciplined guy out there. Meanwhile, you have Chris Weidman, who could have easily retired because of that injury. He goes the hard route. He decides to prove to himself that he can come back, and he's going to get that victory. He's going to prove it to himself that he can still win despite the odds he's had to overcome.
Absolutely agree. I've also got Chris Weidman in this one as well. I feel like if you look at Eric Anders, he's had a few fights inside the UFC, but as you talked about, I feel like the level of Chris Weidman, an All-American, UFC heavy, I was about to say heavyweight, UFC middleweight champion, fought and the highest highs. Eric Anders is been in a main event against Lyoto Machida because of Lyoto Machida. I feel like this one for me is going to be quite handily. I think Chris Weidman has his way. I think he takes him down as well. I think Eric Anders is definitely vulnerable to getting submitted. We've seen him submitted in the past against Andre Muniz, bit of a different style to Chris Weidman, bit more of a brute. But yeah, I think Chris Weidman can get a submission here. I think it looks to make it 2 back-to-back wins. But as you mentioned there, the next time Chris Weidman loses, I think it's game over.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. He also might be the kind of guy that just retires off of a win just so he can get out while the going is good. And we'll move on to the next fight, which I really love, at flyweight. Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. Anybody that pays attention to the flyweight division knows that these guys always go out there attempting to put on a show. And this will be no different. Both guys are going to swing for the fences and try to knock each other's heads off. And I believe the man that succeeds out there will be Joshua Van. Joshua Van is a different breed of fighter. Let me tell you guys, this guy made his amateur debut in 2020. And now he's, nearly 15 fights deep into the UFC 4 years later. This guy is an extraordinary talent. He's still only 23. So you give this guy 5 more years, I believe we'll see him in the title picture. But one mistake that I believe he's made is he just makes these super quick turnarounds. He's too active. I don't think he's giving himself enough time to truly improve. Meanwhile, Cody Durden, also super active. His last fight, he took on 3 days' notice, and he choked out Matt Schnell, retired him. He's also been knocked out this year, so that's a main reason why I'm thinking Joshua Van knocks out Cody Durden in round 3 of this fight. It's going to be all action as long as it lasts, but when it comes down to the striking, Joshua Van is a better striker. Cody Durden has that great wrestling pedigree, but Joshua Van has been great at defending these takedowns. This guy does not have that much wrestling experience, but in his debut, he fought a Kazakhstani grappling guy, and he was able to defend those takedowns. So it's going to be a lot of wrestling defense from Van, and eventually he's going to find that knockout blow in round 3.
Yeah, I like If you look at his last few fights, like, not the last one, but the one before that, where he took a loss against Charles Johnson, unfortunately, he got knocked out. I think he was a fantastic prospect. There was a lot of hype going into him, into that one, and I think there still is. You mentioned it there. Came back against a win against Edgar Chairez, where I feel like the UFC set him up. He got back to winning ways. Now he takes it Cody Durden, who he's 17-6, has a lot of experience in MMA. But if you look at his last few fights, has been knocked out against Bruno Silva, and that's the fate I see him in this fight. I think he gets knocked out by Joshua Van in round 1 or 2. I think Joshua Van, if you look at his last few, the one before he took the loss, he's on a bit of a spree of finishing people. Everyone was falling in love with his hands. I was too. He's got some slick boxing skills. I think he puts away Cody Durden in round 1 or 2.
Yeah, that could be an early contender for fight of the night or some bonus check of some kind. People should go out of their way to watch that one because Joshua Van has never been in a boring fight. We'll move on to the next one at welterweight.
Yep, Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. This one for me, I feel like I see Michael Chiesa winning this one against Max Griffin, who I don't know. Man, Michael Chiesa came back against Tony Ferguson, got the victory. I feel like these are the type of fights where Michael Chiesa gets the job done. Well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for Michael Chiesa, he was on the cusp of retirement before he submitted Tony Ferguson. He said if he were to lose to Tony Ferguson, he would have retired that night. He's had a lot of back issues. He had a great run at lightweight. Then he had an even better run at welterweight. But he hit his peak when he fought Vicente Luque and got choked out with that Darce choke, unfortunately. But he's had a very solid career with great wins. But Max Griffin has always been a guy that has struggled to get in the top 15 of this division for a reason. He's not exactly the highest level striker. The grappling has never been incredible. Back in the day, he got finished with ground and pound by Colby Compton. But outside of that, he's not finding a lot of wrestlers. Michael Chiesa is really the best wrestler he's fought since Colby Compton. So this is really an untested Max Griffin when it comes to the wrestling. And in that scenario, I would be confident in saying Michael Chiesa gets takedowns when he wants them. That doesn't mean he's not going to face adversity. Max Griffin, at this point of his career, is a far better striker than Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa was losing on the feet to Tony Ferguson. A lot of people overlook that, but Tony Ferguson landed more strikes than Michael Chiesa. Believe it or not. That says a lot about how poor Chiesa's striking is. But Max Griffin, I believe his takedown defense will not hold up. He will have success on the feet. He may even win a round, but he's going to get stuck on his back, and there's a possibility he gets submitted too.
Yeah, Michael Chiesa is dangerous off his back. Dangerous in submission territory. It's what he's made his career on. Up and down. Inside the UFC. He submitted a lot of guys. Submitted Carlos Condit with a nasty Kimura. Submitted Benil Dariush back in the day. This guy's got some submission skills. If he could turn the clock back around, I think he defeats Max Griffin. Given you talked about a bit then against Tony Ferguson. A guy Tony Ferguson, who was on like a 5-fight loser, 6-fight loser streak, he looked absolutely honking. He looked terrible until the fight got to the ground and Chiesa could work and get the submission. If Max Griffin can stand there and keep this fight to the ground, I feel like he's got that pop. He's got that little bit of power. When he knocked out Kino Son up against the fence, he's got that little bit of pop, but I don't know. I think Michael Chiesa gets this job done. I think we're going to see a submission victory. I got to say sorry to my man, MMA Locker Room in the chat. He just sent me a message between him and Max Griffin, and he's rooting for Max Griffin.
Yeah, Max Griffin is a very likable guy. Always very great when it comes to reaching out to fans, but he is 39. We have to put that into perspective here. He is actually older than Michael Chiesa. So I believe his best days are behind him, but he's always the guy that I always respect and like to watch fight. But Michael Chiesa, he's going to take him down. That's just the way it is.
Absolutely agree. Next one, we got Clay Guida versus Chase Hooper. This one for me, I want to see Clay Guida in good fights, entertaining fights. He's 42 years old. He's a heavy underdog. I feel like you don't want to see him in there against the guy who's 25 years old. 25. What's the age gap? 13 years. Like I don't even know if that's good maths or not, but probably more than that. 18 years. 18 years or something like that. I think my maths is absolutely gone right now, but 18 years that sets them apart. I don't want to see Clay Guida in these fights. I want to see Clay Guida against another 40-year-old guy who's been inside the UFC for a long time, and it's just fun. The fans like to see it. This one for me, I just don't want to see Clay Guida and against a guy, prospect who, and Chase Hooper has showed a little bit of quality in his, inside his UFC career, but there has been some fights where you look at him and you think, all right, this guy is a little bit questionable. But does he lose to Clay Guida? I don't think so. I think he beats Clay Guida up. Which is quite tough. We know what Clay Guida is about. He's never going to stop believing in himself. He's never going to. One thing about Clay Guida, he's never going to gas out. Never, ever, ever. This man will gas out. He's always going to be there. He's going to be hopping up. He's going to try and be punching. But I just think against a guy who's 25 years old, 18 years older. I don't think it looked good with Clay either. I want to see him in fun fights that I want to see against veterans, not a guy who's 18 years younger than a guy.
Yeah, for Chase Hooper, he is improving, and he's already grappled Clay Guida, and he submitted him in round 1 with a calf slicer. So that kind of tells you all you need to know when it comes to if they hit the ground. But MMA is a different beast on the feet. Clay Guida is going to be active, but he's not the most accurate striker these days. He doesn't really have that much speed. Chase Hooper is no Lyoto Machida out there, obviously, but he can still go out there and land big shots if he's given the opportunity to. You look at the fight with Vyacheslav Borshov, who is a Russian kickboxing champion. He scores a knockdown over him. So if Chase Hooper lands the right shot, he can make something happen. And I believe he's just got this really long build that allows him to just wrap guys up like a present and just take them to the ground. I think that's what he's going to do with Clay Guida. He's going to get into a clinch situation. He's going to pull Clay Guida down, and he's going to find whatever submission he wants, quite frankly. I believe it's going to be a rear naked choke in round 1.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the fight. I think it's a good one. For Clay Guida to get, not Clay Guida, so for Chase Hooper to get Clay Guida in his resume. But still, 42 years old against 25. It's almost as bad as Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I'm joking. Next one, first fight of the evening, we got Kenny Nchukwu versus Lucas Brzezicki. This one for me as well, another fantastic easy pick. Kenny Nchukwu, surely, like it's got to be. If you look at Lucas, Brzezicki, what we've seen from him, in the last few fights, getting knocked out, a guy against like Kenny Nchukwu who's stepping up from 205 pounds. You really wouldn't believe that Kennedy used to fight at 205 pounds, because if you look at him in his heavyweight frame, he's massive. He's ridiculously big. 6'5", 83 reach advantage. He puts that all to work this weekend. I think he knocks out the Polish Lucas Brzezicki within 2 rounds. I don't see how. I don't even see a world that Kennedy Nchukwu loses this fight, and I don't want to jinx him.
Yeah, I believe Kenny Nzechukwu has found his home at heavyweight. I believe there's many fighters on the roster that he can beat just because he's so huge. And I feel at 205, it may have affected his durability. And also, there was just guys that were a lot quicker than him that just beat him into the punch. So at heavyweight, your Lucas Breskis are going to topple over when he hits them, especially when the damage becomes accumulated. We've also seen Kennedy have this ability to make comebacks if things get a little difficult for him. But luckily for him, Lucas Brzezicki, he started out looking pretty decent in the UFC, but he suffered many knockout losses that make me question his durability. And Kenny Nchukwu has a little more pop probably in this weight class, so he should be able to find a knockout relatively early. I'll say round 2. And for Kenny Nchukwu, I believe he's the kind of guy that could crack into the rankings at heavyweight because of the weakened state of the heavyweight division, quite frankly. And we really need to see younger guys like Kennedy in there, and younger guys like Tom Aspinall finally get that shot against John Jones.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I like it. I like it. It's gonna be good. I think it's gonna kick off with a finish of the night. The first finish of the night. Sorry, I think we see Ken and Juku go out there and get a stoppage, and then we're gonna see Chase Hooper go out there and also get a stoppage. I'm always so adamant of if this card starts well and we get finishes, it's only going to build from there. We're only going to get better from there. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of finishes on the main card, especially the co-main event and potentially the main event. We've got Cyril Garten Volkov as well. This card for me is decent. I like it.
I will say this is the third best card of the year on paper so far. I have to say, the only other cards that I thought were better on paper were UFC 299 in Miami. It was O'Malley versus Farah, and UFC 300, Pineda versus Hale. Outside of that, I believe this is the best offering the UFC has given us top to bottom since then.
Yeah, and could you imagine if we did have Bilal and Shavkat? It could have made one, a great card. But yeah, I like this one. Fight of the night. What's your pick for that? And obviously underrated fight of the night.
Yeah, fight of the night is going to be Nate Landwehr versus Doohoo Choi. Doohoo Choi already is in the Hall of Fame for one of his fights, and Nate the Train is all action all the time. My most underrated fight has to be Joshua Van versus Cody Durden. Nobody's talking about it. It's kind of buried on this card with bigger names below it, but these guys are so quick and they always hunt for finishes. That's what I appreciate about these two flyweights.
Yeah, Joshua Van's going to go out there and look great. My pick for the fight tonight is going to go. I'm going to go Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Garry. I think that's a not a very good pick for myself, but I think it's a safe pick. I think it's going to be a good fight for as long as it lasts. I'd like to see both guys hurt. Both guys tested. Which you never know, we might see. But I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to be pretty dominant in the co-main event of the evening, the T-Mobile World Arena. It goes down tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great night. Oscar, always a pleasure to be joined by you.
It sure is. We'll try to be a little more consistent in this new year, but we only have one more week left to preview fights, and we'll be with you next week to talk UFC Tampa, Covington versus Buckley. Lucas in the chat says, I may add UFC is banking on Asakura to win. I agree with you. If you look at all the promotional material, they're marketing the hell out of Kai Asakura. They're even showing old Ryzen clips, which they never do. They got permission from Ryzen to show these clips. And as I pointed out earlier, him winning is better for the division because Pantoja has already fought everybody and he's already beat everybody. So it's more interesting when you have these fresh matchups, especially for a guy like Brandon Royval who's waiting for a title shot. Does anybody really want to see that third fight with Pantoja? Not a lot of people, because we've already seen it twice. Wasn't crazy exciting the second time out. So I feel like the division would be rejuvenated a little bit with a Asakura win. But it's going to be tough for him. I think Pantoja comes out on top. But as I was saying, next week we're going to be talking UFC Tampa. We're going to be recapping UFC 310, which I believe will have a lot of newsworthy stuff on the card. And I believe we may have a special edition of the podcast coming later where we give out the awards for the best moments of the year, the best knockout, the best fight, the best fighter. It's always a heated discussion. And I believe we have to make our opinions known.
Absolutely agree. I'm looking forward to it. UFC 310 go down this weekend. Let's see how it all plays out. Flyweight Championship on the line. Pantoja, Kai Asakura, undefeated welterweights in the co-main event of Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Machado Garry. It's an exciting one this weekend in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I'll be there to watch it. I'm hoping you are to be there to watch it if you're in the UK, live on TNT, USA, ESPN Plus, pay-per-view, that sort of good stuff. Thank you very much. We'll catch you all next week. Enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye. I've clicked the wrong buttons. I've had a nightmare. A good